Bro, I'm looking at this Seahawks roster, bro.
No
Bro,
bueno.
their whole secondary is free
No,
agents, bro. This is
no
crazy.
bueno. I
Inside free agent site. Oh
hey,
my
hey,
God.
when you're not hitting on all your day three picks, bro, it
God
becomes a problem,
damn.
man.
Bro, it is bad, bro. Your day three picks. Bruh. These boys. I'm like, all right, I think I know where I want to go. And then I look at the secondary, I'm like,
Ooh.
He's it downfield. It is. Oh, it's caught.
All right, we are back with another Couch Potato General Manager mock draft. Joining me is CPGM Drew. I am CPGM Juice. We do what we call a mock draft duel, where Drew and I go head to head for the 2022 NFL Draft, our mock drafts. Last time around, I believe I selected the AFC, or I was picking for the AFC teams. You were picking for the NFC teams. We're going to run that back. We're going to run that back this time, but we're going to go 2 rounds deep, 64 picks. And Drew, I'm going to get it started. I last time around I went with Evan Neal, safe, has all the measurables, obviously a distinguished college career at Alabama, but I'm gonna mix it up this time. I'm sticking with the offensive line, but I'm going with your boy Icky, going with the upside here, and I like the idea of what he does in the running game, particularly when you have James Robinson and then you're getting Travis Etienne back as well. It's about protecting Trevor Lawrence, and part of protecting Trevor Lawrence is utilizing those backs and being balanced. So I'm gonna go with Icky, man, at the top.
all right, man. It's back and forth for me between Thibodeau and Aiden Hutchinson for the Detroit Lions, and I'm gonna go with the spice, the flash, explosion, and burst off the edge in Thibodeau. Let me get it.
All right, so that puts me back on the clock with the Houston Texans, and like I said, the top with respect to Icky, I think what goes a long way in terms of being able to protect the quarterback is having a competent running game and an effective offensive line. And with Aiden Hutchinson on the board, that is tempting, but I want to get that tackle position situated, improve that offensive line that was the worst in the league as far as being able to run the football. They were abysmal. I mean, across the board in all rushing categories, they were dead last. So we're going to add Evan Neal to that group. Not sure what's going to happen with Laramie Tunsil. We're probably going to see a very different looking Texans team this year, and I want to build it from the inside out. The offensive line is the most important position group, so I'm going to go with Evan Neal here.
Well, it's a little bit different around here these days. Okay, man. Oh, that's you. My bad. I'm jumping in. My fault. Go ahead. Yeah.
That's all right, though. I'm back on the clock. With the Jets, and I could go in a number of different directions here. You got a lot of quality football players on the board, but I cannot pass up the opportunity to pair Carl Lawson up with an upper echelon edge rusher in this class. So, you took Thibodeau 2 overall. I'm going to go with Aiden Hutchinson 4th overall to the Jets, and really get that down 4 situated so that cover 3 behind them, the back 7, can do what they do. It all starts up front on the defensive side of the ball here in New York.
All right, next up, we got the New York Giants, and man, there's a lot of good players on the board right now, and
it's all been meat and potatoes to this point.
Yeah, it really has. Potatoes. Trenches, and we're going to continue that trend.
All right,
with the Giants, and we're going to go ahead and select the riser of all risers coming out of the Senior Bowl, and Jermaine Johnson. Slip him right in there. Let me go ahead.
Oh, that's how you doing it.
Yeah. We're going to pair him up.
That's how you doing it.
With your boy from Georgia from last year,
Aziz.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and do it.
Let's talk about this one a little bit, man.
Okay.
Obviously he was a big riser coming out of Mobile, the Senior Bowl. Mm-hmm. You've gone on record. You said the man didn't even necessarily have to play in the game. In fact, he didn't even have to go to all the practices. He was so dominant the first couple of days. Very, very accomplished pass rusher. Really bolstered his stock going into the draft process. This past season, I believe he led the country in sacks, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but I know he was up there among the leaders in the FBS in terms of sacks. What was kind of your concern going into the Senior Bowl, and how did he dispel those concerns?
Just a secondary or as you like to say, tertiary move, because offensive linemen are too good going into the league. They just you have to have a plethora of moves. You have to have a plan, and not that he didn't have a plan. Just He didn't have a backup plan, right? So you got to have that. And at the Senior Bowl, man, he showed that so much. Like you said, he didn't have to play, didn't have to come out in the third practice. I mean, agent said, man, you're good. It's over. It's done. You've done what you've been asked to do. And, like I said, when you go into that Senior Bowl, I'm looking for specific things. That's probably the number one thing is, can he improve? Can players improve on their flaws or the things that I just didn't see? And he did it. So it looks like I got the next 4 picks. Now it's the next 3 picks. And we have the Carolina Panthers. And listen, I don't care who you have back there at quarterback. For this football team who's drafted defense for the past 2 drafts heavy, one specifically the entire draft, we got to go offense, and we got to protect our quarterback. I know Sam Darnold, he's had some issues, some troubles, but a lot of their issues just in general have been the offensive line, things that you probably would have seen a better Sam Darnold, maybe the first few games Sam Darnold had the offensive line been able to protect. And so I want to continue to protect Sam Darnold. And I am going to take Charles Cross from Mississippi State, offensive tackle there.
We've seen Charles Cross drop as of late. I think there's at least one other tackle that seems to have eclipsed him among a lot of mock drafts, a lot of draft evaluators. But when you talk about pass pro, which I think is really what they're in dire need of, particularly at tackle, trying to find that bookend opposite Taylor Martin. There was some question whether or not Brady Christensen could play that. He actually played some left tackle last year, but of course the Panthers brass, they're concerned about arm length here. Charles Cross obviously checks those boxes, or at least we anticipate that he will check those boxes. Arguably the best pass protector in this class. Makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I think the reports are. I think Daniel Jeremiah actually went on record on Rich Eisen's show, saying that the Panthers are basically hell bent on drafting an offensive lineman. And I think if you're gonna reach, that's the position that you reach at. You know what I mean? Considering the weakness of your team, and they should be able to get a day one starter. Even though he may not necessarily play at a very high level out the gate, I think the guy should develop into a quality, if not upper tier starter in due time.
All right, man. So next up, we got the Giants one more time, and I really want to go Kyle Hamilton here. I want this defense to be at the top of their game, and they could do that here. But I also heard the owner, and he spoke to me as the GM, and he said, "Listen, we've failed our quarterback. He hasn't been his best. We don't know what he looks like at his best on a consistent basis, and part of that is the offense. A part of that is." We're changing schemes. We're changing coaches. We got to protect him, man, and we got to go get us a Trevor Penning.
Oh man,
offensive tackle, another riser.
We're going on a run.
Yeah, we're going on a run.
So this is obviously the player that I think had perhaps eclipsed Charles Cross, according to some evaluators to this point, right? So in this particular mock draft, Drew, like I said, this has been a meat and potatoes draft through the first 7 picks. It's been nothing but offensive line and defensive line. But that's where games are won. Games are won in the trenches. And we may see Cross and Penning come off the board sooner rather than later, considering so many teams in desperate need of a better pass rush as well as being able to protect the quarterback.
All right, next up, we got the Atlanta Falcons with the 8th pick overall. And this one's a tough one, man, because it's a team we've been talking about where they're just they've fallen apart rather quickly. And they're going to have a ton of free agents. They're not going to have a ton of money. I'm not sure what this team's going to do. I feel like they're kind of starting from the bottom here. Got a quarterback who's kind of on his last leg. He's only there because his contract is crazy. And you have a receiver and Calvin Ridley, who's, is he going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Do we go receiver? We can't really go receiver. Like, they need talent. Just pick the best player possible and run with it. I mean, to me, they got the number one receiver they can go and get. They got the number one safety. They got the number one corner. Like, they'll have their pick in terms of what they can do at specific positions, obviously, because they're picking so high. Man, I'm just going to pick the best player at this point, bro.
All right. Fair enough.
I was thinking about Burks, but I'm like, nah, let's just go with the best player available. And let's go with Kyle Hamilton, safety out of Notre Dame. And in some people's minds, he might even be the best player in the draft, and I understand it.
Falcons need talent, to your point. They just desperately need talent. The way things are set up with the number of contracts expiring, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty. I think if the Falcons certainly should be picking best player available at this juncture, and if not, they need to be trading down to get more wax at it, to get more draft capital to help turn around this thing, rebuild this thing. All right. So I got the Denver Broncos up at 9. There's any number of different directions I can go in. Obviously, quarterback. We'll find out. We'll find out before the draft whether or not, or at least we anticipate finding out before the draft whether or not Denver will be in the market for a signal caller in the draft. I'm anticipating that they won't, as far as this mock draft is concerned. So where my thought process is it lies on the defensive side of the ball. That isn't to say that the Broncos can't stand to improve offensively, whether it be the offensive line. Hell, they got some enticing weapons, but if we're thinking Aaron Rodgers in particular, why not stuff the roster with some more weaponry, especially out there in the AFC West? Very competitive, a lot of good quarterbacks out there. But we're going to play some defense, I think, with this pick. We're going to play some defense, and I'm going to pair up Patrick Surtain II, PS2, with Sauce Gardner, another bigger, longer corner, really clamp down, make it difficult on those guys on the boundary. And this could be a premier duo in short order at the corner position. Right now, you could argue that they're corners that are more polished than Gardner, but I think just the unique size, speed component with quality ball skills and kind of a dogged mentality in terms of defending, whether it be the run game or the passing game, I think he'll fit kind of the mold there, you know what I'm saying, and really form a dynamic duo with Patrick Surtain. All right. Rounding out the top 10, I have the New York Jets making their second pick. And first time around, we went Aiden Hutchinson. Really just, bolster that pass rush. Again, you're playing a lot of cover 3 with Robert Saleh as the head coach there. They could certainly use a corner as well. There's also question marks in terms of whether or not there's enough weaponry around Zach Wilson. They have their pick of the litter at receiver. What you think, Drew? Let me get your opinion on this. Where would you go with respect to this pick?
I don't know, bro.
And the reason why I ask you is the reason I already had to pick in mind. But the reason why I ask you is because I want to get your opinion on it for our viewers, because you are very much a Zach Wilson fan. Right. that was your guy in last year's class. So are you tempted to go receiver here? Are you gonna stick to the mold? I just think with respect to that scheme that they run defensively, at least in San Francisco, they didn't seem to be a priority from a draft perspective on the corner position. We like what Bryce Hall brings to the table, but there's some question marks. Marcus May, I think, is expected to be an unrestricted free agent, if I'm not mistaken. And they kind of have like a revolving door of young players opposite Bryce Hall. So what do you think here?
So with what you just said in terms of the revolving players, I just wonder if they figured out, okay, we kind of know who the guy opposite Bryce Hall will be, and we can work with what we have. Plus, we'll have Carl Lawson back, as that was just a huge hit for them in general, right? Making things much tougher. We got Aiden Hutchinson now, you know what I'm saying? So let's go help our quarterback, man. Again, I'm about helping the quarterback, protect him and give him the requisite weapons that he needs so we can evaluate him completely, right? So I would go receiver here, man. I'm not going corner. I'm going to go receiver, man. Let's run it.
It's a deep class. It's a deep class of corners. And again, there's just a part of me that believes, and to be fair, the quality of corner may be too much to pass up at this juncture, right?
It might be, yeah.
With a guy like Booth, Stingley on the board, that when you talk about that kind of talent, it may just be too rich for the Jets to pass up. Right. But there's a lot of depth at that position. Kind of applying some of the principles that San Francisco employed with John Lynch. It didn't seem like that was a position of focus. Now, we did address what they typically do put a lot of early draft capital into, which is the defensive line. So it gives you some flexibility here as far as the corner position. For this mock draft, I've actually decided to go the receiver route. And the receiver that I'm going to pick, gives you a little of what you might get from a Debo Samuel, and you have to understand that that's the coaching tree, that's the Shanahan coaching tree now in New York. There may be some unique ways that they could deploy Traylon Burks in addition to being your X receiver or your Z receiver. So I'm gonna go with Traylon Burks, the size speed combination, what he does after the catch as a ball carrier is probably the best in the class. And
Right.
like I said, there's certain aspects, certain physical attributes, physical traits that you simply can't teach in a Traylon Burks. Not as polished as some of the other receivers, but I think you can get creative in terms of how you use him, create some real, put the defenses in the AFC East in a bind with Traylon Burks at your disposal.
Yeah, I can't, bro. Listen, if they got the D line they have, they don't necessarily need top flight corners. You know what I mean? You guys just do their job and think balls might fall in those guys' hands, or they might not have to depend guys as long as they think they have to. So I'm with it. All right, next up, man, I got the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders. All right. Yeah, all right, man. With the 11th pick overall. It's I mean, there's a lot of good defensive players on the board here, but I'm gonna go quarterback. Again, I'm gonna go back to what they did last year, which was they were one of the teams rumored, allegedly trying to get Justin Fields. If we're not Justin Fields, somebody. They was trying to get somebody, and I think that they know that Heineke has limitations. Sure. There's no doubt about it. I'm not sure what's going on with Fitzpatrick, but he's always an injury away from just kind of being over. So let's go ahead and get the future, man. And I'm going to go down. Let's go get us the man, the legend from Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett.
The legend. I'm a Kenny Pickett fan. I wouldn't go legend just yet. But I am a Kenny Pickett fan, though. I definitely am a Kenny Pickett fan.
All right, so next up, we got the Minnesota Vikings. So another team who was rumored to try and trade up to get Justin Fields, just wasn't able to do it.
So what do they do now?
Listen, this is the team like the Ravens of last year, who every time you turn around, it's what was it? It was Rashad Bateman as a receiver was going to the Ravens in every mock draft, like it was pencil. It was locked in, bro. That pick was made before the first pick was made. You know what I'm saying? When people were doing their mocks, because they knew that's where it was going. And for the Vikings, it's pretty much been Stingley for the most part. I've seen a couple of Andrew Booths. I don't think I've seen Sauce go to them because he's probably gone already. Or people just pick Stingley over Sauce at that point.
Yeah.
And Sauce is off the board here. Stingley's right there for the taking. But you know what? Kirk Cousins. We've seen enough.
You had enough?
Yeah, we've seen enough, man.
Okay.
And we're going to go Malik Willis.
Let's
get it, man. The future's changing in Minnesota. Let's run it.
So a little bit of a curveball there. But I think there is a chance that Kirk Cousins is playing somewhere else in 2022. So you get your guy. It's a new regime, new GM, new coach. It's new brand. It's new brand in Minnesota, and I'm certain that even though despite the fact that they do have Kirk Cousins under contract for one additional year, and of course Kellen Mond was drafted last year. I don't expect either of those two guys to be the guy moving beyond 2022. So you get a jump on it here. You get a jump on it here with Malik Willis. All right. So I got the Cleveland Browns followed by the Baltimore Ravens here, and this has kind of been my shoe-in pick for quite some time with Cleveland. I love Garrett Wilson. Love what he brings to the table. Yeah. I think Cleveland has this is kind of board meets need, to a certain degree here as far as the receivers are concerned. No OBJ. We're not expecting Jarvis Landry to be back. This is a simple one. It's a matter really of what kind of flavor you want. You know what I'm saying? Do you want a big red zone threat in the form of a Drake London? Do you want a speedster, a blur like a Jamison Williams, or do you want kind of that all-around threat, excellent to the catch, attacking the football at the highest point and being able to create consistent separation as far as a route runner? So I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson in this case and really try to help out Baker Mayfield as much as possible. All right. So staying in the AFC North, we have the Baltimore Ravens. And, there was that huge run on offensive tackles
Yeah.
at the beginning of our mock draft here. We had Ecom going 1, Neal going 3, Charles Cross and Penning going 6 and 7. So, with that being said, and as much as the Ravens need to improve upon their offensive line, the Ravens need to be proactive in free agency with respect to improving not only the offensive line, but also their secondary. You know, their secondary was hit with an inordinate amount of injuries. You have some contracts expiring. I'm not anticipating, a wholesale change defensively. Perhaps less was cover zero, but still quite a bit of man, considering that the new defensive coordinator was Harbaugh's defensive coordinator at Michigan. So I'm expecting a lot of man coverage here. I think the guy that you probably want in terms of man coverage, assuming everything checks out, we're hearing that he won't be performing at the combine. That concerns me. We will find out, I hope, that, more along the lines with respect to his medicals. That is Derek Stingley here. But considering everything is up in the air right now associated with Derek Stingley, I'm going to opt for another corner. I'm not going to force the issue here along the offensive line. Like I said, we can use free agency to kind of help stem the tide there. But I'm going to opt for a guy that we really like. That I think you got to think about, turning defense into offense. And I don't think there's anybody quite like Andrew Booth in this class as it pertains to that. So I'm going to go with Andrew Booth here. I think he obviously played a lot of zone at Clemson, but he has the requisite traits and ability to play man. And like I said, the athleticism and the ball skills are off the chart. So I think Andrew Booth will fit in well. And he clicks and closes. He'll get downhill, and he supports in that run game as well. So I think Booth will make an excellent Raven.
Oof. That's some meat up here, bro.
Yeah. Folks probably going crazy that we still got Stingley on the board, man. But I just don't. When we talk about Stingley, we talk about how polished he is. Particularly when you're looking at that freshman tape, right? Just looks the part, has the requisite size, not overly big, but has good size, has the speed, has the ball skills, has at times flawless technique. But there was some uneven play in his sophomore year, and then of course the injury got him, and now we're not going to see him at the combine. I anticipate, or I'm expecting him to interview. The medicals to check out. This may change after the combine, after we get some more details with respect to how he's faring on that front. But not seeing him at the combine, him being out of sight, out of mind, and having entered this 2021 college football season with Andrew Booth as my top corner, I think house money here for the Ravens, my opinion.
All right, man. Eagles fans, you got the next 2 picks. And I'm going to do y'all a solid, because I know I'm going to do them a solid, man.
Solid.
Since Burks is off the board, we're going to do the right thing. We're going to come down here and go ahead and get your man Drake London, receiver. We're going to do that for you, okay? All right.
You ain't happy. Playing with it. You ain't playing with it.
Let's do the right thing, man. Guy who's going to be where he's supposed to be. And a guy who can make plays after the catch, because they got guys all over the field for the Eagles that can do that. It's just that, are they going to be where they need to be, and are they going to catch the damn football?
Right.
Well, I can tell you Drake London will. So, all right, man. Eagles up again. So we got to focus on this defense, man. And I've been going back and forth in my head, and I hear you talking about Stingley, and I'm thinking to myself, man, should I really do this? Should I really pass up Stingley here to draft the best zone corner in the draft? He's also a great tackler.
Yeah.
And Trent McDuffie. Eagles fans,
what say you?
You know what I'm saying?
What's it gonna be, Stingley or McDuffie?
Listen, this is obviously this is pre-combine, so I'm gonna be brave, man.
Be brave.
I'm gonna be brave.
Be brave.
And I'm gonna go get Trent McDuffie, man.
Ooh.
Because and here is my thought process. Unless you can tell me that the Eagles are gonna come out of the zone that they're gonna play and they're gonna mix it up, there's no reason to draft Stingley. For me, I think you're gonna waste his talents. Again, we can talk about, am I getting freshman year Stingley? I'm getting that guy. He goes first corner off the board. I don't know if I'm getting that guy due to the injuries and due to, just being aloof, as I like to call it. plays at a time. So I'm going to go with the guy that I know what I'm getting every single play, and a guy who, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't really had an injury history. So I'm going to go with Trey McDuffie, man.
Got the Los Angeles Chargers on the clock here. It is well documented how much they struggle to stop the run. Despite being a run funnel defense, you expect them to give up some yardage, but they just, got gashed time and time again. And I think it prohibited them from getting to, as well as, some of the decisions about the coach. But at any rate, that has been an eyesore for the Chargers for an extended period of time. It looks like they're turning the corner in terms of their offensive line. We could go receiver here. Mike Williams is slated to be an unrestricted free agent. This conversation about Stingley, outside of Davis and Samuel, you don't really have a whole lot. You got to be able to match up, especially out there in the AFC West. So I think we can address proving upon that run defense a little bit later. You certainly could go pass rusher, opposite Ajabo, opposite Bosa. In terms of Jenna Nwosu, I believe he's an unrestricted free agent as well. Although I think they should bring him back. They might just need to tag him, to be honest with you. But I think at this point, I don't see Stingley getting past the top 20. I'm gonna bet on the talent at this juncture. You understand what I'm saying? I got two guys that I feel good about at the corner position. It's not an overwhelming need, but then again, you need to be 3-4 deep at least. To be able to play in this passing league, and it's going to be hard pressed to get a guy as talented as Stingley at this juncture moving forward. So I'm going to go with Stingley here, and I just love the depth at the edge position. I think the Chargers can do a number of different things in terms of solidifying that run defense, and the edge depth in this class is huge.
All right, man. I'm gonna continue to ruin this draft for everybody, and I'm gonna draft it again for the Saints, man. It's about the receiver position. It's about the quarterback position to exit Drew Brees stage left. And so we need his replacement, man. And I'm going to go with a guy out of sight, out of mind, who we haven't heard of, who should have made it to the Senior Bowl. Would have loved to have seen him there. He probably would have been it would have been him and Kenny Pickett for me, the big guys, in terms of wanting to see, what they look like. And that's Matt Corral, Ole Miss quarterback. Yeah, and I think we got to continue to work on this defense for the Eagles. And I think that, or we could go offensive line. Brandon Brooks retiring for the Eagles there, and it's just like, do we continue to add talent to this defense because I think it's needed, or do we continue to help Jalen Hurts in protecting the quarterback? Although I think one of the things that the Eagles do very well is finding talent for that offensive line. They do a very good job of finding guys, slotting them in, and developing them, and that's something that they figured out and unlocked. So because of that, we are going to forego offensive line. We're going to continue to build this defense, this zone heavy, ridiculous defense. And if you're going to play the zone that they play, you got to be able to rush the passer. And it comes down to a guy from Michigan with a bunch of tools in his tool box, or a guy who's just a devastator, man. Has a great plan, pretty much every play in terms of pace and timing, and comes with violence on top of that, and Trayvon Walker. And or do I slide down to a George Karlaftis because he's still on the board? You know what I mean? He's still on the board. But I think I'm going to go with the more flashy, more sexy, and I think the more proven player, and a Trayvon Walker out of Georgia.
All right. Yeah, all kinds of curveballs in this 2-round mock draft here that we're doing. Guys, do us a favor, like, comment, and subscribe. Even if you dislike it, like, comment, and subscribe. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers on the clock, and of course there's a glaring need at the quarterback position, although I'm fairly certain that this team is going to address this via a veteran. I wouldn't rule out them bringing in a guy themselves, a rookie, but and even in the 20 hole, even if they bring in a veteran, I wouldn't rule out completely them drafting quarterback here, or perhaps trading up. The word is that they are high on Malik Willis. I think they like Kenny Pickett as well, being kind of a local guy. having played his college ball in Pittsburgh. With that being said, and assuming that they go the veteran route, I think they have to. I think they absolutely have to improve their offensive line. This team has let that position group deteriorate over time. There's some quality defensive players on the board here, but let's talk about drafting best player available, right? But I just, when it comes to the offensive line, that to me goes out the window. When you have to improve the offensive line and you have quality guys that can come in and slot and be difference makers out the gate, I think you have to go in that direction. And the guy that I really, really like here isn't necessarily who you think it is. I know there's a contingency of Pittsburgh fans that really like what Kenyon Green has to offer, would take him in a heartbeat here. But I'm going to go a little bit different. Here. I'm going to go with my guy Zion Johnson, man. I was thoroughly impressed. He doesn't necessarily have the same pedigree as a Kenyon Green, but guys, I think you drop him in here and you got an 8 to 10 year starter easily. And then of course he could play a little center. He had never played center before playing center at Mobile, and he actually acquitted himself very, very well. So that work ethic, that flexibility, that ability to adapt quickly, take the coaching, I was thoroughly impressed by that. And I feel really good about Zion Johnson, 20th overall to the Steelers. Next up, we have the New England Patriots, and again, we're looking at this board, and there's just so many good football players. This might throw a little bit of a wrench in people's plans, right, in terms of what they want to do. But I got to tell you, man. I think you have to help out Mac Jones here. I think you got to be more explosive in terms of your perimeter weapons. It was just too difficult passing the football. Guys weren't creating separation on a consistent basis. You thought maybe they would kind of work from the inside out, and Hunter Henry came alive a little bit later in the season, and certainly hope that they would get a little bit more Jonnu Smith moving forward. They paid him, as a guy that would be featured in the offense, but that didn't really materialize. But I think they need somebody who can take the top off of this defense. That really will put fear in the hearts of defensive coordinators and secondaries alike, man. And I think that comes in a couple of different forms, but none as much as Jameson Williams, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do it. It's a guy that he may not necessarily, that is Mac Jones may not necessarily be terribly familiar with, because Jameson Williams was a transfer from Ohio State, but I think he has the type of world-class speed that changes the dynamic of your entire offense. He has the ability to make everybody better simply because of what his speed will do. When he goes in motion, defenses are going to be keyed in, and it's going to create angles and opportunities for other players. When you push the football down the field and he gets a step or two on somebody, guys will interfere. So I think that explosiveness that the New England Patriots desperately needs, I think nobody brings it quite like Jameson Williams, and that's why I'm opting for him over some other receivers that I really like. Right? So I'm going to make my third pick in a row here, and we got the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock. So the Las Vegas Raiders, they can go in any number of directions. I think the Raiders, overachieved this past year, to be honest with you. I think they overachieved, all things considered. Coach got fired in the middle of the year. Rich Bisaccia, I thought, did a great job, but ultimately didn't get the gig. Enter Josh McDaniels. He's going to want to put his stamp on it, particularly with his offense. But and there's a need on that side of the ball as well. But I think the Raiders can stand to improve at every level of their defense, man. And you got some excellent defensive players on the board here, including George Karlaftis and David Ajabo. I love what Devin Lloyd brings to the table. You could go to the secondary. Cornerback is a concern there. Any number of different directions you could go here. But the guy that I'm going to opt for, I think he brings so much to the table in terms of being able to attack the line of scrimmage, play sideline to sideline, make a difference in coverage. And that's Devin Lloyd. I think Devin Lloyd has a unique skill set at linebacker. We've talked about it previously. I think teams are going to be looking for the Micah Parsons, the next Micah Parsons. Now, that guy doesn't grow on trees by any stretch of the imagination. But Lloyd's ability to affect the passer, in addition to being an excellent off-the-ball linebacker, I think is the reason why I would go in this direction to kind of help all aspects of your defense to some degree. The Corey Littleton thing hasn't necessarily panned out. Nick Kwiatkowski in kind of the same boat. Denzel Perriman played great in his last season. It's 1 year left, but I think Perriman is a guy that you lock in, and I think you put Lloyd next to him. You may make some hard decisions on Littleton and Kwiatkowski moving forward. I think what Lloyd brings to the table kind of helps you in terms of every level of your defense to some degree. You know what I'm saying? I think his skill set is so varied, and he's the type of, under different circumstances, I probably would take with Denver, another AFC West team, in the top 10.
Next up, we got the Arizona Cardinals, and we saw what happened to them in that playoff game. They were just outmatched, and you saw the frustration from Kyler Murray, and you see the whole offseason with him and the clearing of his IG page or Twitter, whatever the hell it was. But I imagine that situation will get patched up. I think I want to say this real quick. I think that Kyler Murray's got to chill. If Lamar Jackson hasn't gotten paid, I think he got to pump the brakes. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you haven't done what he's done. You know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna leave that there. But in terms of protecting the quarterback, whoever that is, they have to do that. There's no question about it. And I think the guy that you have to go with here is I'm going to go with Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. Just slide him in there at guard. Max Garcia is a 1-year deal with the Arizona Cardinals. Not sure if he's coming back, so we're going to go ahead and just have his replacement and start the protection for Kyler Murray there with Kenyon Green. All right, so next up, we got the Dallas Cowboys, the Jerry Jones Cowboys. Juice's Cowboys.
Stop it.
And listen, if this guy's on the board, like you run over to the commissioner, you knock him over, you call the pick out immediately. Okay. There's no reason to do anything else, because if you draft this guy, Michael Parsons now becomes a guy that he becomes the true moving piece on that defense, which is what he should have been in the first place. And you're going to draft Nakobe Dean, linebacker out of Georgia.
Okay. We're getting weird out here, man. I mean, the pick itself isn't weird at all, but just staring Ojabo and Karlaftis in the face here, we're at the 25th pick overall, and those guys are still on the board, and they may remain on the board the way this thing is working out, man. We got the Buffalo Bills on the clock. Drew, I think for me, it's either defense, and it could be, any level of the defense, perhaps not linebacker now with Dean off the board, but defensive line, even though they've placed quite a bit of draft capital into it here recently. Jerry Hughes is an unrestricted free agent. I actually like Gregory Rousseau more as an interior defensive lineman than an edge rusher, to be perfectly honest with you. I know he can do it from the edge, but I think he's more effective in the interior. So like I said, you're staring at Karlaftis and Ojabo in the face here. That might be a direction you can go into. On the offensive side of the ball, I think they're in good shape. Some people might feel like they could improve upon the running game, but when Devin Singletary was given an opportunity, he did good work on that side. Tyler Linderbaum intrigues me right here. He certainly does. But I wanna address the cornerback position. Levi Wallace should be a UFA. Is expected to be a UFA. Tre'Davious White coming off the injury. You gotta have 3 to 4. I'm gonna just call it now. I'm gonna just call it 4, because three guys are your starters, right? 2 guys on the boundary and your nickel. Teron Johnson is holding down the nickel for Buffalo. So this guy may not necessarily profile as your typical boundary corner, but I think he can do it. I think he can also move inside. I just love the technique. In terms of being a press, bump, and run guy, I don't think there's anybody better in the class. That's my guy, Roger McCreary, man. I know a lot of people are really, the Kyler Gordons of the world are really flying up the draft boards, but there's just aspects of McCreary's game that are so advanced in my eyes that I can't pass it up, man. I can't pass it up for perhaps the upside that a Kyler Gordon may display. Titans have some work to do. I think this is a team that, over the last several years have been right there on the cusp. There's a question as to whether or not Ryan Tannehill can get them over the hump, but there's some moving parts along their offensive line as well as their defense in terms of the pass rush specifically. And with guys like Tyler Linderbaum and David Ojabo on the board, it's a difficult decision. I think they should make a play to bring back Ben Jones. Ben Jones has been solid for them. That offensive line has done a great job in terms of their run game. There's a need at receiver as well, depending on how things play out. This might be a situation where the Titans opt for a receiver. But in this particular scenario, the way the board has fallen out, I'm going to stop the David Ojabo slide, and I'm going to grab him grab him with Harold Landry being an unrestricted free agent. Bud Dupree, I expect him to kind of round back into shape here. I'm not sure what's going to ultimately happen with Landry. I think Landry's going to command a considerable market. So we're going to bring in David Ajabo here to give us some teeth, get after the passer out there in the AFC with all those talented quarterbacks filling up the AFC.
Yeah, the Bucs gonna run to the just like the Cowboys ran to the podium and ran over Roger Goodell. Bucs doing the same thing with Tyler Linderbaum, and with them losing
Ali
Marpet. Surprise, 8 years in the league, says I'm out, I'm good, got my Super Bowl, probably should have had 2, but he's out, and respect. But we gotta, offensive line is now an issue for them because they're probably going to lose their center and their right guard. Well, they lost their left guard as well. So got to go offensive line here. I know receiver is also something that Bucs fans would like here too, but it's all about protecting the corner. And corner too.
Yeah.
Corner's big too. This might be a spot for Kyler Gordon here really. But again, the offensive line is an eyesore right now.
Yes, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And this is assuming they don't get back Kappa. Obviously Marpet is gone and they don't get back Jensen. So I'm going to do the right thing and go for Tyler Linderbaum, the best center in the country, and a guy who did he get a Heisman vote? He got like 2 Heisman votes.
I think he got a little love. I think he got a little love.
So yeah, man. And guys, like, subscribe, and comment, please.
All right,
man. 28th pick overall, almost halfway through this thing, man. We got the Green Bay Packers, man. And I'm not going to waste any time, man. I'm not going to waste any time. You know where we going. It's receiver, man. And it comes down to which receiver.
Receiver, yes.
That's really what it comes down to.
That's the real question.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You got the smooth, the polished, probably the most polished receiver in the draft, and a Chris Olave. You got a Jahan Dotson, who is an athletic freak and a guy who can jump out the gym and plays bigger than he is and has speed for days. And you got a David Bell, man, a guy who knows how to kind of get up in the air, contort the body, make the catch, kind of works in that short to intermediate. He's nice in the short to intermediate area. It's kind of pick your flavor. And then maybe we drop a little bit. George Pickens, who actually might be the most talented receiver in the draft. Oof. Just you haven't seen it because he's been injured, right? Oof. And then you got a guy, Christian Watson, who's kind of, Senior Bowl has done him well, right?
Christian Watson?
Yeah, you know what I mean?
All right.
We're going to do the right thing, man. We're going to go with Chris Olave, a guy, when you talk about polished receivers, you're talking about guys who are going to be where they're supposed to be, guys who you can kind of put it in a spot and he'll just show up in the spot because that's where he's supposed to be. And he's just always open, man. And he's not too bad after the catch either. He's coming from wide receiver you know what I mean? So Chris Olave is the pick here.
All right. So we have the Miami Dolphins on the clock. New head coach. We need to get that outside zone going. But I don't know that the board necessarily matches up with addressing that offensive line right here at this juncture. They have another eyesore on the offensive side of the ball at receiver. And of course, you took Chris Olave to the Green Bay Packers with the 28th overall pick. I'm gonna go with your boy. The way this one kind of worked out, he still managed to find his way into the first round. I think he's a first round talent. In Jahan Dotson, I'm going to pair him up with Jalen Waddle, losing Gesicki, another receiving option here. May want a little bit more size, in the form of a George Pickens or a David Bell, but I think Dotson's the guy that I feel most comfortable with at this juncture. So let's get him in Miami. And then with the Kansas City Chiefs, for me, I know a lot of people feel like they need that receiver opposite Tyreek Hill. At this juncture, it's not something that I'm going to prioritize. I think I'm going to look a little ahead, just beyond 2022. I think it can certainly help in 2022, but just looking beyond 2022, they're going to have some expiring contracts. There's a safety question mark here as well with Matthews' contract expiring, and then of course the Daniel Sorensen thing and all of that there. At any rate, I really think the George Karlaftis slide is probably too pronounced in this mock draft, but it's just the way it worked out. I'm going to bring that to an end here. I do not see Frank Clark in Kansas City beyond 2022. The cap number is too big, and then they only have a handful of guys who are actually under contract beyond 2022. So George Karlaftis comes in, he makes an immediate impact, and he's a full-time starter as early as 2023, if not 2022. All right. And I'm going to make my last pick in the first round here with the Cincinnati Bengals. Offensive line, absolutely a need here. But again, I made mention. I don't know if the board necessarily matches up with it from a value perspective. They gave the most sacks in 2021. Certainly reared its ugly head in the Super Bowl. I think the Bengals need to trade up. To be honest with you, I think they need to be aggressive about getting any of the guys that we selected in the first. They're going to be able to get up to the point where they can draft an Icky or an Evan Neal, but certainly get into the conversation of a Charles Cross, a Kenyon Green, Zion Johnson, Trevor Penning. They need to net one of those guys, in my opinion. They need to net one of those guys. So I'm not going to force the issue, although this is one of the position groups that I will tend to reach a little bit in a draft in order to address it. I'm not going to go that direction. I'm actually going to go in the direction of Kaiir Elam. And again, I know there's a high for Kyler Gordon. There really is a high for Kyler Gordon. But when I watch the tape and I see all the press bail, I want a guy who's going to really be able to, I feel comfortable in man-to-man coverage. And when you talk about what Kaiir Elam does in man-to-man, little grabby, there are some penalties there, but I can live with it. I think he's fully equipped to be a press man coverage guy. Really can be physical, use his length and ability. I saw what he did against the likes of the Alabama receivers and throughout his career, and I think he's battle tested, and I think he's up for the challenge in the AFC among all of these, like I said, really talented quarterbacks and receivers. So I'm going to bring in Elam here to round out that secondary and take another crack at it, and we're going to address the offensive line a little bit later here.
All right, with the last pick in the first round, we have the Detroit Lions selecting, and you talked about it earlier in terms of Kaiir Elam and the corner position. I'm going to go with the guy who seems to be just making his way up the draft board, bro. He just kind of you know what I'm saying? And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Daniel Jeremiah was kind of the first guy to kind of have this guy higher than most people that I've seen up the board, and Kyler Gordon, cornerback out of Washington, a guy who I feel can play the man and the zone, and a guy who, for me, the way he lives, he's going to be your shadow, man. He's going to be your shadow.
The first round, obviously, we addressed the offensive line. I'm not opposed to addressing the offensive line yet again with the Jacksonville Jaguars, but I think Trevor Lawrence could use some talent around him. I think he needs a weapon. I think they need to be more explosive all around on that offensive line. The first pick was primarily a matter of protecting him and really getting physical along the offensive line and opening up rushing lanes for James Robinson and Travis Etienne. Now I want to be able to stretch you. I want to be able to stretch you here. And a guy that you mentioned before, Drew, very talented, just had dealt with injuries. Going to give you some of that DJ Chark, if you will, you know what I'm saying? But perhaps even a higher ceiling there with George Pickens. I think that's the guy that I like. I have earmarked for the Jags. I can go in a number of different directions. A lot of talented players still on the board here, but this is about Trevor Lawrence, man. This is about being able to score points, because in order to be able to make it to the playoffs, you got to score points. Defense wins championships, but in this passing league, if you're not putting up points, if you can't hang, anywhere from 28 to 30 points a game, or anywhere from about 25 to 28 points a game, you're going to have a hard time winning football games.
You took my guy, bro.
I had to.
You had to
do it.
You had no choice, man.
I had to do it.
Because the Lions need help at the receiver position. I know, Goff isn't the most sexiest out there, but they need another guy. I know St. Brown was doing his thing. It's kind of coming along, but they just need another guy, man. So for me, is it David Bell? Is it Christian Watson? And I'm gonna take Christian Watson here.
Ooh, okay.
And I'm gonna take him because he has some special teams chops. He can do a little bit more in that area than I think David Bell can. And you just gotta watch the Senior Bowl. I mean, I've seen the tape in terms of the games he's played for North Dakota State, but the Senior Bowl did it to me. He checked all the boxes. A lot of people were wondering, can he create separation? Yeah, I mean, yeah, he can. He did, and he was the best receiver there. So, if you feel some kind of way, hit me down in the comment section. We got to get the line right.
Feel some kind of way.
listen, we went defense. We went pass rusher and Thibodeau. We went corner. Those two things are linked. You know what I mean? When you talk about the defense and offensively, man, the boys just need help. You got to be able to score points to win.
That's absolutely fair, man. We got the Jets on the clock. And with the first two picks in the first round, I went with Aiden Hutchinson and Treylon Burks. I mentioned, some unrestricted free agents, i.e. Marcus May. We're going to bring in Daxton Hill to replace him. Considering defensively, schematically, what they want to do, Daxton Hill kind of gives you, kind of the best of both worlds here at this juncture. There's some other safeties that I like, but Daxton Hill's the guy for me here at 35th overall to the Jets.
Yeah, I like him a lot, man. That guy, man, listen, he can play a little nickel. You know what I'm saying? I think him and Brisker are actually similar, but I think that Hill is probably the better cover guy, while Brisker is probably a guy you can throw it down in the box and he can mix it up. But I like him a lot. He's kind of impressed me in terms of the tapes. All right, next up we got the New York Giants, and they went offense and defense in the first round, and them having two picks. They went Jermaine Johnson and Trevor Penning. We got to shore up those trenches, and so. When you talk about the Giants defense and what they want to do, it's going to be cover zero. It's going to be cover one. It's going to be leaving guys on an island by themselves. And I think this team is going to have to add another corner. We're talking about, I saw a report or a thought that that Bradbury might get cut because of his cap number. I don't know that you would do that here with what they plan on doing on defense, but can you leave Adoree Jackson on the outside by himself consistently? He does have the speed, but does he have the talent that we thought he could, the talented guy that we thought he could be coming out of USC? Hasn't quite lived up to that. So I'm going to go corner here, and I'm going to grab a guy who we saw at the Senior Bowl and who CPGM Juice had a conversation with, that he got to use his hands, bro. Like, you got the speed, you got the length, and this is a guy who people expect during the combine to actually blow it up. And if he does, he's going to jump in front of some guys that we probably will be like, what are you thinking? But, people love the spark. They love the numbers. And that's Tariq Woolen out of UTSA.
Former receiver turned corner. He's 6'4", and he can fly. He can fly. I know, but to your point, Drew, if I'm a coach, dude, you better put your hands all over those receivers, man. You better uppercut those receivers at the line of scrimmage. I don't want to see no bail technique, man, because despite all of that straight line speed, he was getting stacked when he didn't put his hands on the receiver. So definitely need to be conscientious of that. So we have the Houston Texans on the clock in the first round. We got Evan Neal. This team really has to place an emphasis on the offensive line. Again, I did that in the first round, but they could stand to go back to the well here. There's some names on the board that certainly are worthy of the pick. But with Lovie Smith being the coach, I'm expecting, quite a bit of, two-man shell, not a ton of blitzing, 4-down line rush. Jonathan Grenard is a guy that we really like, that I think, may actually take off here. They may actually take off, considering that we didn't go defensive line in the first round. We didn't go edge in the first round. You got a lot of guys who can help out on that side of the ball, help out in that area of the defense. But I'm going to go to the interior defensive line, right? I'll go to the interior defensive line, and there are two guys in particular that I have my eye on. A lot of people are like, Jordan Davis isn't off the board yet, but I need a guy who's going to get upfield and be that quintessential three technique for me. So it comes down to two guys for me, Drew, and the versus is coming. The versus is coming. It's Devontae Wyatt and Perion Winfrey. We know what Perion Winfrey did at the Senior Bowl. He was fantastic. Made play after play. I mean, from start to finish, whether it be the first practice or the game, he was terrific. Devontae Wyatt, I think he may have aggravated a little injury, but when he was out there in the practice field, you could see the quick twitch. You could see the ability to get upfield and make plays. And that's the direction I'm going to go in this time around. This may change. This is subject to change, but I really like Devontae Wyatt and what he can do from the interior in terms of bolstering that pass rush. Again, as I said, the Texans currently, prior to the Evan Neal draft selection in this mock draft, they only have 2 offensive linemen who are under contract beyond 2022. So it certainly is an area that you can go back to, but I on selfish purposes here, I'm going to go get Devontae Wyatt, you know what I'm saying, and really bolster that pass rush. We're back with the Jets, and the Jets had 2 first-round picks. Went Aiden Hutchinson and Treylon Burks in the first round. Came back in the second round with Daxton Hill. And we're back on the clock again here. And again, this is another team that can go in any number of different directions. That there is a question mark along the offensive line, not unlike the Texans. We talked about corner. We talked about corner in the first round here. This is a spot where we could go corner potentially. I'm leaning in that particular direction, but there's so many guys. There's so many good players on the board here, and offensive line is still a question mark. It's still a question mark here. Are you going to bring back Morgan Moses? Are you comfortable with Fant? What's the Becton situation looking like? Is he healthy? Is he ready to go? I'm going to assume that he is. So let's go to the corner and let's go with Darien Kendrick. I think Darien Kendrick, former Clemson Tiger, went to Georgia, acquitted himself quite well in that very stingy defense. Went to the Senior Bowl and he was good. He wasn't great, but he was good. And I think in this system, as long as you got a quality pass rush in front of him, he should be able to thrive. He should be just fine. So I like Darien Kendrick in this spot.
All right, next up we have the Chicago Bears. It's actually their first pick in the draft. We know they're trading and doing all that stuff to get their quarterback. So got to get Justin. Got to have him. And so now it's all about protecting the quarterback at this point, right? And also it's about having the requisite weapons so you can again evaluate him. And I just wonder what's going to go on with Allen Robinson and what's going to happen with that. And it's just, there's a new regime there, so I'm going to assume they're going to do the right thing in terms of bringing him back and protecting their quarterback.
Okay.
And Justin Fields. And I'm going to go with an interior guy and Sean Ryan out of UCLA. And just watching the tape, man, I was like, dang, this he's actually like really good. Like I like what I see, man. But listen, bro, I need you to use like I need you to use
hit him with a stab. Hit him with a stab.
And hit him with a stab, bro. Like everything can't be two hands. You know what I mean?
Hit him with the E-Honda.
Right. You know what I mean? And I think this is why he's being pushed inside to say, hey, you're going to play inside and not play tackle because you play better in a phone booth. You play better when guys are when you get out there on that island, things get ugly, get scary. And so let's push you inside, keep you in that phone booth where you can operate and you can use your two hands consistently versus on the outside where you have to have that jab, that stab. And so we're gonna go with Sean Ryan, the guard out of UCLA.
All right. I got the Broncos on the clock here, and hindsight being 2020, I may have gone Devin Lloyd in the top 10, but instead I went with Sauce Gardner. Couldn't pass up pairing him up with PS2. We're going to continue to bolster this defense. That there's some question marks at the second level. There's also some question marks in terms of where the pass rush is going to come from, right? Bradley Chubb has dealt with some injuries here. Von Miller obviously was traded to the Rams. This is where the depth of the edge class really starts to come into play, as far as this mock is concerned, right? And I was thoroughly impressed with several of the defensive edge players at the Senior Bowl, and perhaps none more so than Boye Mafe, man. I gotta go with Mafe here, man. He is a problem.
Yeah, he is a problem, and he was a guy who just kept flashing. I'm like, bro, like it was 34. He just kept popping up and popping up, like.
Listen, Cameron Thomas got hurt. He didn't get a chance to really do his thing, but Majai Sanders was there. You had the edge guys from Penn State, and like Barre was there. I mean, it was a lot of quality edge guys. But like I said, I don't know, outside of Jermaine Johnson, I don't know that anybody was more impressive than Boye Mafe, man.
All right, next up, I got the next three picks. It's tough out here in these streets.
Hard out here. Man.
It is. And when you look at this Seahawks roster, it's even harder. Pause. This team is in trouble. Like if I'm a Seahawks fan, bro, I'm a little nervous. And I know you got Russ and let him cook. And all of that, man, but the offensive line don't look good in terms of who you're going to sign and bring back. You're looking at the secondary, got a bunch of free agents there, a couple of defensive linemen. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing, man?
What are we
doing?
What
I'm saying? And listen, I'm just going to go, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm going to keep it plain. I was thinking safety. And at this point, there's no corner that I would take at this point. I'm gonna go with the highest rated player in my opinion at this point in terms of the defensive line and between the corner defensive line and the safeties. And I'm gonna go with Cameron Thomas, edge out of San Diego State. And I actually think this is a guy who actually plays better in the inside. For me, he's quick off the snap, and he does every time I see him. In terms of him affecting the passer, if it's off the edge, it's usually the coverage downfield is kind of tight, and he's got the high motor where he can just kind of keep it moving, keep it going, and pursue. But it's usually when he's affecting the passer, it's usually when it's immediate, it's usually on the inside. So It's a guy you can have on the outside on rundown, or excuse me, on first and second down, and he's actually a really good defender on third downs. Just throw him inside and let him work. Next up, we have the Washington Commanders, and I'm gonna keep it simple, man. Listen,
quarterback in the first round. What you following up with?
And we're gonna follow up with a receiver. Now it comes down to, are we gonna go with a David Bell? You know what I'm saying? Are we going to go with a John Michi the third? Or, a guy who's kind of climbing up boards right now, who guys I think expect to blow up the combine, and a Sky Moore out of Western Michigan.
Yeah, people are all on the Sky Moore.
Yeah, they are on the Sky Moore. But I'm going to go with the David Bell. I'm going to snatch him up with David Bell. I don't think that Adam Humphries is coming back, and you just need another guy, man. And listen, Curtis Samuels, wide receiver 1. Back in the day, some people's listen. I know he was injured, part of the year, and he really didn't kind of come on at any point during the year. And I don't know that he'll ever, he's not a true receiver. He's a gadget player, in my opinion, at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think David Bell is a true receiver and a guy who can win on the outside, win in the slot. And a guy who can be reliable for his quarterback. So we're going to go David Bell here for out of Purdue for the Commanders. And then we have the Atlanta Falcons up next, and a team who, that boy just needs talent. Like, this is a team that's just going to say, hey, man, we don't even worry about what the position is, just who's the best player on the board at this point. And I'm going to go with Winfrey, Perion Winfrey.
Perion.
Yeah, man, this is where he got to get slotted in. A guy who actually, I think, you know what, bro? Nah, I almost gave it away, bro. I'm gonna leave it there, man. He has the quicks, and he was dominant at the Senior Bowl. And a guy who, I think if he doesn't play in the Big 12, plays in the ACC, plays in the SEC, somewhere where they play 4-down linemen, and he's that interior 3 technique. I think this is a guy who practices in the Senior Bowl probably first day, maybe second day, and he doesn't see a third day.
Sure. It's interesting. This pick is interesting because you have Grady Jarrett there. It's one of the few bright spots on this Falcons roster at this current juncture, and he is the 3 technique, and you slide in Winfrey next to him. But you say you just want good players. You just want good football players, man. You don't want to overthink it here. You got Dean Pease, so you can get multiple. You can do some things. You can get creative here. So yeah, I actually like it, and it was something that I was potentially leaning towards. With the 44th overall pick in Cleveland, I had my eye on Perion, but of course things happen in the draft. In the first round with the Cleveland Browns, we went Garrett Wilson. We went to go get our number 1 receiver, the focal point of our passing game, and they need to make that happen in Cleveland if that is the case. We're going to go to the defensive side of the ball here, and outside of Myles Garrett, there isn't a whole lot along that defensive line at this juncture. Some good names, quality players, whether it be interior guys or edge guys here. But I'm going to go with the flexibility and the upside associated with DeMarvin Leal. I think, in early downs, you can play your edge. When you go into obvious passing situations, third downs, you move him inside, and he gives you some flexibility there as well, being able to push the pocket. So I like Leal here. I think in terms of position flexibility and pass rushing upside, I think Leal is the name and the guy here, considering that Perion Winfrey got selected just 1 pick ahead. So that puts me up on the clock again with the Baltimore Ravens. Went corner in the first round with Andrew Booth. Just couldn't pass up the ball skills, the athleticism, the fact that, they were just so banged up in the secondary. You need a guy who could be a difference maker opposite Marlon Humphrey there. But they need to address their offensive line. We saw what it looked like without Ronnie Stanley. Andre Villanueva really struggled. They can really stand to go interior or offensive tackle, but considering the current players on the roster and what the board is looking like, I'm going to opt for Daniel Falele. Now, Falele has his concerns, you know what I'm saying, in terms of dealing with that wide nine speed rush, you know what I mean? But if he gets locked in, he's just a mountain of a man that he's going to punish you. And I think you can get kind of that Orlando Brown type of production out of him potentially. You understand what I'm saying? So I'm going to go in that direction. I certainly would prefer his upside over a Villanueva at this juncture.
All right, next up we have the Minnesota Vikings, and with the first pick, I selected Malik Willis out of Liberty, the quarterback, the Kirk Cousins replacement. I actually think Kirk Cousins is going to end up in Pittsburgh. That's just my take. You know what I'm saying? I think that's actually a really good place for him.
I would say so.
He can go and screw up, and they can make up for his screw ups. Just can't do that in
He'll have a heater. He'll have a month where he looks like the best quarterback in the league. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it goes.
It can't be worse than what they had last year.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And overcooked.
Overcooked
Ben Roethlisberger. The burger was overcooked, bro.
Dry burger.
Dry, bro. There's no hope for that. No salt, no pepper, none of that. I was gonna say that.
Couldn't redeem it. I hear you.
No. And so with the Vikings, I'm thinking about maybe linebacker here, or was thinking, safety, corner, because they need that in the worst way. But I'm gonna go with a guy who I think can actually play the nickel position, can play some safety. Is a safety, but I think he can come down in the box. I think he's a jack of all trades at the position. And so I think he might be a moving piece within that defense. And I'm going to go with Jalen Petrie out of Baylor. I really like what I saw out of the Senior Bowl. And I know people are screaming about, why not Brisker? Brisker had a chance to be at the Senior Bowl and didn't show up. So this is what happens.
It's what happens, man. Unfortunately. It's what happens. I got the Colts. Colts are on the clock, and this is their first pick. They decided to do the Carson Wentz thing. It didn't work out, but here we are in the second round, and they have an opportunity. They have an opportunity to get their guy at quarterback. There wasn't a huge run of quarterbacks in the first round in this particular mock draft, so still got some guys on the board here in terms of a Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, and a Carson Strong, and it really comes down for me. At this point, or do you want the Howell? Do you want the Ridder? Now, I think Ridder, what he brings to the table is a certain level of leadership that I'm not sure that I think is on par with whomever you think is the best quote unquote signal caller in terms of mentality, in terms of temperament, in terms of leading his team. I think Ridder brings something to the table with respect to that. I thought he acquitted himself very well at the Senior Bowl. Certainly, kind of working in the West Coast system. He was impressive. And then Sam Howell, it was a little up or down for him, but Sam Howell is a complete gamer with not just, he's not scrappy. He's actually talented. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, it comes down to one of those two guys. And in this case, I'm going to opt for Sam Howell. That remains that could change. That's a fluid situation between those two quarterbacks for me. But at this point, I think Sam Howell's a guy to kind of elevate this team a little bit more, but also protecting the football as well. I got to take Howell here because I think he has more upside as a passer. I like what Ridder does. I think he gives you a quality floor. Certainly had a big senior campaign. But that team was also stacked, man. The way Sam Howell fought despite losing a lot of his supporting cast was impressive to me. It really was impressive to me. So I'm going to opt for Howell. All right. And next up with the Chargers, we opted for Derek Stingley as Stingley was sliding down in the first round. Of course, everybody fussed and yelled at me because, we still can't stop the run. Well, just so happens that the best run-stopping player, defensive tackle, interior guy, I think the best run-stopping player in the draft is still on the board. And that's big old Jordan Davis, man. You could play your zero technique or your one technique for you. And I would have been perfectly fine with perhaps like a Travis Jones at this juncture, but even better, Jordan Davis in the second round. I'm all for it. That's house money right there.
No argument here, man. Can't believe he fell so far, man. That's crazy talk. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints with the 49th pick overall, and I'm going to have them selecting the best player on the board at this point, and that's Jaquan Brisker, safety out of Penn State. A guy who I prefer in the box, but I think he's an interchangeable safety moving piece. And with three free safeties for the Saints on that football team, I don't see a scenario where they're bringing back Marcus Williams. Don't see that they have the money. I know they made some cap moves recently, but I mean, I just don't see that happening. So we're going to go ahead and draft his replacement in Brisker.
All right. I got the Fins on the clock. So in the bottom of the first round, I opted for Jahan Dotson. I didn't feel compelled to reach for offensive lineman. Now I feel much more comfortable from a value standpoint, having gotten Dotson, considering that you had a dearth of weapons outside of Jalen Waddle on the offense for your young quarterback in Tua. Now we're going to help bolster that offensive line. I think Bernhard Raimann has the requisite athleticism to get out in space there with this zone scheme, the Mike McDaniel's offense, and I think being a little bit older, being a little bit more polished, although I shouldn't say polished, being a little bit more older, a little bit more mature will kind of offset the fact that he hasn't been playing football all that long, but he has all the tools. I think he has all the tools. I think in some instances people feel he is a bottom quarter of the first round talent. I'm more convinced that he's a day two guy, but at the 50th overall pick, I feel good about him, and certainly the Dolphins can use his services.
All right, so next up we have the Philadelphia Eagles. And in the first round, we selected Drake London. I know you're happy. Trent McDuffie, I know you're not happy. Derek Stingley was on the board. Sorry about that. And then 3 picks later, we selected Trayvon Walker to affect to help the pass rush because we're going to play the zone heavy scheme on defense, right? But I also talked about the offensive line and the interior. Brandon Brooks is retiring. What's going on with Kelsey there, Jason Kelsey? We're going to go in the interior offensive line, and it's 2 players, Tyler Smith out of Tulsa and Amari Sawyer out of Georgia. And watching both of these guys, Smith is a guy who you have to be in close quarters. Call it taijutsu. Listen, if you know what taijutsu is, Naruto, you know what I'm talking about. Hand-to-hand combat. You know, he doesn't want any space. Like, you could just tell out there playing tackle, you just knew, like, okay, I know why he was out there, because he had the nice mirror technique. But outside of that, he was fish out of water.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes when you play, you know, he's the best. He's the only guy we got. We got to throw him out there. You know what I mean? He probably should be playing guard, but we don't have a tackle, so we're going to put him out there, right? With I'm a butcher his name, Sawyer. You could tell he did not want to create space, right? He didn't want to get too much depth when he played tackle.
Sure.
Right? And he played both tackle and guard for Georgia, and he's much better at playing guard, and he knew his limitations. He knew, man, if I get out here in this space, I'm fish out of water. I don't want that to happen, and so I'm going to play it close to the vest. You know what I mean? I'm gonna play this a little bit unorthodox at the tackle position, and it worked for him. But when he was out there by himself, fish out of water, you know, he was holding. You know what I'm saying? He was missing. It wasn't good. So the guy that I think I'm going to go with, though, is the Taijutsu man in Tyler Smith out of Tulsa. I like him a little bit.
He's a big riser. Big riser.
Yeah. So I'm going to go with him because he gives me a little bit more athleticism in the box, in the booth, at the guard position. And so I'm going to go with him. Although I kind of give up, I guess, the versatility in Sawyer. Although I don't think you'll ever see him out there at tackle. If he's out there, that means everybody hurt. So
yeah, Smith played tackle at Tulsa, but like you said, they're projecting him as a guard at the next level. Guard.
Correct.
All right. So I got Pittsburgh back on the clock in the first round. We drafted Zion Johnson, who's my top interior offensive lineman, by the way. Maybe I shouldn't say top. I think he's basically neck and neck with Tyler Linderbaum as far as I'm concerned. I like the fact that I think I think in terms of the guards, I think Zion Johnson is definitely number one. Linderbaum being the top center, top pivot in the class. So that puts us in a unique position here. Again, this is a team that could stand to go back to the offensive line well here. But I got Desmond Ridder on the board here, man. You know what I'm saying? In all likelihood, we have a veteran in place, whether it be a Kirk Cousins or Gardner Minshew or someone of that ilk. But I kind of like the idea of Desmond Ridder here, who's, like I said, there's a maturity about him that I appreciate, and seeing him work in a West Coast offense throughout the Senior Bowl week was really encouraging to see, and he took a substantial leap his senior year at Cincinnati. There's weapons around him. Like I said, we're trying to tool that offensive line together, get that to a point where we're really formidable. You mentioned Sawyer. I think that's a guy that they could consider here as well. But considering that we went Zion Johnson in the first round, I like Desmond Ridder here. I wasn't ready to pull the trigger on him in the first round, but considering that he's fallen into our laps, I feel really good about him with the 52nd overall pick. Yeah, I don't get Mason Rudolph vibes from Desmond Ridder. I get a much more competent quarterback from my perspective. All right. So we have the Las Vegas Raiders on the clock next. In the first round, we drafted Devin Lloyd. Of course, looking at that Raiders roster, and considering, obviously things change subject to free agency, but I thought they could use, or rather stand to improve at every level of their defense. There's holes. There's holes throughout, and perhaps linebacker was the one position group that they may not necessarily needed to have addressed, but I couldn't pass up what Devin Lloyd brings to the table as a difference maker at the second level, in terms of him being able to attack the line of scrimmage, be a pass rusher, and then be very competent on all three downs. You know what I'm saying? Even when he's dropping back into coverage. So I couldn't bring myself to pass that up. Here in the second round, lots of good players on the board. Receiver, that quintessential field stretcher, I think is something that they can certainly use. There's some names that I like, but I like this name a lot more, to be honest with you, right here, Drew. This guy by the name of Travis Jones. We had an opportunity to see him at the Senior Bowl, man. He was dominant. You talk about Perry and Winfrey. I think you could argue that Travis Jones helped himself as much as a Perry and Winfrey. You know what I'm saying? And you talked about he kind of gets lost on a bad UConn team, but he was a difference maker in the interior of that defensive line, and he gives you 3 down chops. He's stalwart in terms of downs 1 and 2, but I think he can push the pocket a little bit here too. And like I said, Raiders could stand to improve at every level of their defense, and Jones paves the way for Devin Lloyd. In the first round with New England, we opted for Jameson Williams, give Mac Jones some more weaponry, give that offense another element, right? They were just missing that element. Guys that could really, strike some fear into the defense, create some consistent separation. I think he brings that to the table, and it certainly opens up things, not only for that running game, but certainly your tight ends to the short and intermediate parts of that field. Longtime veterans in Devin McCourty and Dante Hightower that appear to be on the outs. I think corner is certainly a question mark. I'm actually going to go to the second level. I considered edge rusher, but I'm looking at Quay Walker. I'm looking at Chad Muma, Christian Harris on the board. I'm really impressed with Muma, man. I'm really impressed with him. As much as I like Logan Wilson coming out, I think I'm higher on Chad Muma. The football IQ as well as the athleticism is there, right? 3-down guy. There's some versatility there. I think he slots right in there, and he's a starter day one for Belichick.
I ain't mad at it, bro. All right, so next up we have the Arizona Cardinals, and in the first round we went interior offensive line. We went with Kenyon Green, center, tackle, guard from Texas A&M. His versatility is, it is what it is. Stick him in there, let him go. Got to protect Kyler Murray. And I wanted to go Travis Jones, but he went 2 picks earlier because them boys need help there as well in the interior of their defensive line. But we're going to go wide receiver because I'm not sure what's going on with AJ Green. I know that's a sore subject for Cardinals fans. And then also Christian Kirk, who just He just never busted it great. But I have a feeling, I'm going to be honest with you, I have a feeling any receiver that gets slotted into this on this team, there's a ceiling to it because of what's happening there outside of a superstar in a DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, I just believe there's a ceiling. I think Cliff Kingsbury, I don't think he'll ever adjust. I think he is what he is, and I think he's going to be back to college soon. But with that said, we're going to select John Mechie III out of Alabama. Got that Alabama pedigree. It's a guy who came from the bottom up to the top to work his way into that Alabama offense. And listen, they were saying at one point he might actually be better than the two previous receivers that were there that he shared time with. He just couldn't get his shot because those guys were, knew the offense and had the pedigree and all those things. So I think slotting him in here should help this offense. All right, next up we have the Dallas Cowboys. And Cowboys fan, I'm just gonna let you know you're not gonna be happy with this pick. I'm sorry. Let me know who you would have chosen at this point, who was left on the board for you to select. I'm gonna go with tight end, and I'm gonna go with Trey McBride. McBride won the Mackey Award, best tight end in the country, and we saw that at the Senior Bowl. He showed up. It's a guy he's the entire package when you talk about the tight end position. From he can play on the outside, he can play in the slot, he can play inline, he can block. He's the entire package. The only thing I think he's lacking that you would want from that position is that getaway speed. He doesn't quite have that, but he's better than what you have at tight end. And since Blake Jarwin and Dalton Schultz seem to be guys who consume targets when it should be going to receivers, let me go ahead and do the right thing and get him a guy who's actually going to catch the football and be where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I almost went McBride with the Finns earlier, because of the Gesicki situation and everything. And McBride is more complete in nature, which I would imagine would work well in Mike McDaniel's offense, But it's just one of those things that offensive line that was calling me, you know what I'm saying? And they got to get that addressed. Now, depending on how they approach free agency, they could put themselves in a position where second round they get their guy, and McBride could be, the focal point outside of, Jalen Waddle, of course, of that passing game, not unlike, George Kittle, perhaps not to that degree, but certainly he could be a difference maker as far as the passing game. But like I said, the offensive line was kind of the priority, but that's where I was identifying McBride. I actually like McBride in Dallas. I think even though Dalton Schultz showed some things, whatever the case, maybe McBride is a better football player. He's simply a better football player, and Dak was hitting Schultz this year, man. He was probably a little too focused on Schultz this year, to be honest with you. But Mari Cooper might not be there. This kind of helps you stem that tide, All right, we got Buffalo on the clock here, and first round we address the cornerback position with my guy Roger McCreary. Check out that scouting report on the channel. With the Buffalo Bills, we have a number of expiring contracts. Devin Singletary is going into the last year of his deal. Tremaine Edmonds at the mic. You got Jordan Poyer. You got quite a few guys that may not be in Buffalo beyond this year, and you got some good players on the board here that could step in and replace them. The eyesore for me is Tremaine Edmonds. I've been wholly unimpressed. I'm not seeing the development or the year-to-year progression. The instincts and coverage really are lacking. It's not as if Quay Walker, who's the guy that I'm eyeing here for the 57th overall pick, is the most instinctive guy, but I think he does a better job of diagnosing what's happening around him, particularly when he's dropping into zone coverage. Buffalo doesn't have anybody else signed at the linebacker position beyond 2022 aside from Matt Milano, so Quay Walker is the pick here for me.
Quay Walker. All right, man. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons, the talentless Atlanta Falcons.
They're not talentless no more, man. What'd you do? You got a Perion Winfrey.
I did.
You got a Kyle Hamilton. You're stacking up that defense. You're giving Dean Pease some pieces, man.
Yeah, I am, man. No excuses. No excuses, man. We gotta right the ship over here for the Atlanta Falcons, and I'm gonna do something a little different here, man.
A little different.
A little different, man. And in the draft, I think take the best player on the board in a running back. First running back's coming off the board.
Okay.
Right? You got Kenneth Walker the third. You got Breece Hall, and you have Isaiah Spiller. The question is who do you like?
Who do you like?
What would you take? And all these guys have fantastic skill sets, but I'm going to take the guy who probably has the most in terms of those skill sets, and Isaiah Spiller. And this is a guy who most people I think would take for granted in terms of his ability because it's so smooth and good. And again, we're just adding talent to this team because we got to continue to do it over and over. So Isaiah
stuff the roster with talent.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, next up, man, we got the Green Bay Packers. We're coming to the end of this thing. And I was looking at this team, man. It was kind of, I was struggling, bro, because I'm looking and I'm like, what's left here? You know what I'm saying? What's good value in terms of what can we do for this team? In the first round, obviously, we went receiver. We had to do that. There was no way around it. Chris Olave, the most polished receiver coming out. And I think we're going to have to continue to protect our quarterback. And this was an issue for the Packers. And I'm not going to say this. I'll say this. I'll say it wasn't an issue from the standpoint of the guys they were putting in there were actually performing well, but I don't know if that's sustainable if it happens again in terms of injuries and guys who won't be there. And just they were kind of playing over their head. Right. Let's not do that again. Let's get a guy in here who we can slide in that interior. I talked about him earlier. Jamari Sawyer out of Georgia. I'm going to play that guard spot. Slip him in. Let's get it.
Yeah, it's a good player. I don't think enough people are talking about him. I think Jamari's a good player. Got a chance to see him, live and in person at the Senior Bowl, and he didn't disappoint. A lot of position flexibility as well. He's a guard. He's a guard at the NFL level in all likelihood. But yeah, I thought he was impressive. Not ballyhooed, but certainly very impressive.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I'm racking my brain. I'm racking my brain in terms of who it can take here. And I think the running back position is a position when the run happens.
Yeah,
you better get in it because it's gonna go quickly.
Okay.
But
no,
we're gonna go running back here.
All
right. With Leonard Fournette probably not coming back because at this point he's probably looking to really get paid. I don't know if he'll find that check, but he's not going to find it with the Bucs. They're not willing to. We got other concerns, and running back is an ISO for this team at this point if he's not coming back. And Ronald Jones, who he was in the doghouse, wasn't in the doghouse, back in the doghouse, and he just wasn't really getting any run.
Yeah.
With Keyshawn Vaughn, he started to come on, but I think he ended up getting hurt. Like they couldn't find that guy that they could go to after Leonard Fournette went down. I think they need a guy that they can count on in terms of pass pro specifically, and being able to see the hole, get in the hole, get up out of the hole, and hit a home run. And I think you can get that with Kenneth Walker III.
All right. Now, the question with Kenneth Walker to some degree is going to be his pass pro, but I think this is an area that he can certainly improve upon. And frankly, with BA being the guy there, he's not going to get on the field until he demonstrates that.
Demonstrates that, right?
Yeah, but I think he definitely has the aptitude to get it done, and certainly there's no debate in terms of what he can do on the ground. The other thing is catching the ball out the backfield. This is why I actually thought you were going to go Breece Hall in this direction. I think there's less concern with respect to those things. I think Kenneth Walker, as far as being a ball carrier, he might be the best in the class. Right. He might be the best in the class, but in terms of the full skill set, I give Spiller and Hall a little bit of an edge from that perspective.
I like the home run ability, right? I agree.
Yes, I hear you. I get it, man. I certainly understand.
Next up with the 61st pick overall, we have the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm going to go edge here, opposite Bosa, and I'm going to go Logan Hall, edge out of Houston, high motor guy who I think can be a guy that you can slide in on the inside on third downs if need be, but it's a guy who has high hand usage. Good luck.
Taijitsu out there?
Yeah, Taijitsu, bro. Let's get it.
George Karlaftis slid all the way down to 30th overall pick.
It's crazy, bro.
Chiefs. Kansas City wasted no time in selecting Karlaftis, versatile defensive lineman. They just in terms of expiring contracts and and there's not a whole lot beyond 2022 outside of Chris Jones in Kansas City. So we like Karlaftis there in the second round. We're going to continue to bolster this defense. There's going to be a different looking back end in Kansas City, particularly at the safety position with the landlord, as they call him, Tyrann Mathieu, no longer going to be in KC. I like Lewis Sign here. I like the way he closes. I like his football IQ, the fact that he's seemingly always in position. So I think he slots in here, and he can take the Steve Spagnuolo's defense quickly.
Sure, you don't want what about that 49?
Who?
What's Buddy name? Sorensen, bro?
No, I don't want nothing to do with that guy, bro. All right. We're down to our last two picks in our 2022 NFL mock draft, our mock draft duel, Drew. This has been a long one, but it's been a good one. It was really interesting in the first round. I think we kind of settled in here towards the end of the first round and going into the second round, but it was really interesting, man. Hopefully people are still watching at this juncture. I got the Bengals on the clock here, and we didn't force the issue, knowing that offensive line is a big concern. We didn't force the issue in the first round. Just didn't particularly care for the value there. We went Kaiir Elam. I think when you talk about man coverage and the traits associated with demonstrated man coverage ability and the corresponding traits, I think it's hard to get a whole lot better than Kaiir Elam, especially at that point in the draft, at the bottom of the first round, early second round. So I felt comfortable taking him there. This time around, we're absolutely going to address the offensive line. And there's a guy here that I think, has some things that he needs to work on, but I think he's going to compete. He's going to compete, and I think he's going to continue to get better. He's working with Duke Manyweather. I think if you're an aspiring NFL offensive lineman, if you are going to take that leap, that Manyweather camp that they do down in Texas, I think goes a long way in terms of teaching guys how to be pros. You know what I'm saying, and working on their flaws. So I like Darien Kendrick. I think, like I said, there's some things that he needs to work on, but I think still, with that being the case, he's an improvement to the existing offensive line in Cincinnati. That being said, I'll reemphasize what I said during the first round. I think this is a situation where Cincinnati needs to be aggressive about moving up and getting one of those upper echelon guys in the class. Right? And with the last pick in our 2-round mock draft, we have the Broncos back on the clock. First round, went with Ahmad Gardner, came back in the second round, got Boye Mafe. I'm thrilled with. I might be more excited about the Mafe pick, the Gardner pick. And here we are with Denver back on the clock, and there is, we're addressing that defense. And there's things that we could potentially do on the offensive side of the ball, but I'm going to go back to the well. I'm going to go back to the well on defense here, and the guy that I'm looking at is Christian Harris.
Yeah, I
think we can stop his slide here, because the thing that Denver is missing, I like Jewel, I like Alexander Johnson, I like Johnson, but those guys are more two down in nature. They struggle, in terms of defending the pass. I think that's where Christian Harris tends to flourish. You understand what I'm saying? If I think he does a pretty good job green dogging as well, but he provides more athleticism at the second level of the defense. So in Denver, we've addressed every level of the defense, and we've got more athleticism, more explosiveness with each of those picks. All right, so that's going to do it for our first 2-round mock draft. Next time you see us do a mock draft duel, it'll probably be of the 3-round nature. We're also going to get into the team-by-team 7-round mock draft, so be on the lookout for that. A lot of content to come. We're about 60 days out as of the time that we're doing this mock draft. We're about 60 days out from the draft, so there's going to be a flurry of content coming at you. Drew, real quickly, let's just run through this draft before we sign off here. Got it started off a little bit of a wrinkle with Ika Mekwonu. Again, we're dressing the offensive line in Jacksonville. You followed up with Thibodeau and Neal, Aiden Hutchinson, Jermaine Johnson, Charles Cross, Trevor Penning. The first 7 picks were all offensive line or defensive linemen. The Falcons, to your point, they needed talent, so you grabbed Kyle Hamilton. I couldn't stop myself from pairing Sauce Gardner with PS2. came back, got your boy Zach Wilson a weapon and Traylon Burks. You then went back-to-back quarterbacks in the first round with Kenny Pickett.
A little run right there.
Yes,
Little
absolutely. Yeah, so the Commanders and the Vikings, respectively. Garrett Wilson, Andrew Booth, back-to-back picks with the Eagles, netted Drake London and Trent McDuffie. Derek Stingley falls to 17, but I think that's a great landing spot for him in Los Angeles. Matt Corral was the third quarterback off the board. Trayvon Walker rounded out the top 3 picks for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pittsburgh, big eyesore along the offensive line. Go get Zion Johnson and forget about it. It's not a sexy pick, but I think it's going to be an effective pick. Jameson Williams, Devin Lloyd, Kenyon Green, and Kobe Dean were your next 4 picks. You got speed, explosiveness, upside, and incredible instincts in the Dean. Roger McCreary, that's my guy, replacing Levi Wallace in Buffalo. Ajabo, Linderbaum, Olave Dotson, Karlaftis Elam to round out the first round. A lot of talent. We saw Ajabo and Karlaftis in particular slide a bit. Linderbaum has settled into the back end of that first round. And then, of course, you got a couple of receivers come off the board there as well. Can't fail to mention Kyler Gordon, one of the bigger climbers among draft analysts at this juncture. He didn't break into the 20s necessarily in our draft, but he does find his way into the first round. Detroit opting for everything but a quarterback, because as you can see, as we get into the second round, started off with George Pickens. You were thoroughly impressed. We were thoroughly impressed with Christian Watson. I didn't expect him to go quite this early, but you didn't hesitate to pluck him, add him to the lines, add him to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Daxton Hill lands nicely in New York, followed by Tariq Woolen, who could tear up the combine in particular. Devontae Wyatt is your 3 technique now in Houston. Darien Kendrick, back-to-back secondary picks for the Jets. So the Jets netted, again, Aiden Hutchinson, Traylon Burks, Daxton Hill, and Darien Kendrick. I think you got 4 starters. I think you managed to get 4 starters with your first 4 picks in New York. Drew, you're a big fan of Sean Ryan. You're a big fan of Sean Ryan. You like what he's doing, but you're playing him at guard, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Then we had a little bit of a run along the defensive line. You got Boye Mafe, Cam Thomas with the next 2 picks, followed by David Bell. Perry and Winfrey, you grabbed him right before I could at 44, so I followed that up with DeMarvin Leal. The Ravens finally bolstered that offensive line with Daniel Falele. You then picked Jalen Petrie, another big riser. Petrie is a safety by trade, but what he does in the nickel is really special. I think that is probably why you decided to go in that particular direction, having not gone corner in the first round. Sam Howell lands in Indianapolis's lap.
Perfect, love it.
Love that fit right there. Yeah. Jordan Davis also lands in the lap of the Chargers, considering all of the issues that they have stopping the run. You stopped the slide of Jaquan Brisker with the Saints. The Saints have a number of guys in the secondary that are unrestricted free agents, or rather free agents. So Brisker is in all likelihood will be starting. Bernard Ryman, you can argue an older prospect, but I think in terms of his skill set, he's a good fit for what they want to do in Miami, and certainly the value is understandable at that juncture. Tyler Smith, another big riser here. I see a trend with your draft, Drew. I see a trend. These guys who are kind of making that late push. You seem to be on board with that, man. You seem to be on board with that. So follow that up with Desmond Ridder, another quarterback that had been discussed somewhat in the first round. He falls to the Steelers. So the Steelers go ahead and bolster the offensive line in the first round, come back and get their future signal caller and Ridder. Travis Jones, you talk about big risers. Travis Jones might be one of the biggest risers in all of the draft, coming out of UConn, big interior defensive lineman. Chad Muma, I just thought, when you lose a stalwart in Dante Hightower potentially, you can drop a guy like Muma who's going to give you some more athleticism and give you that football IQ that Belichick covets. I think that's a great fit. John Mechie, Trey McBride, Quay Walker, Isaiah Spiller were your next 4 picks. Jamari Salyer to Green Bay. I was a little surprised you took him there, but I really like the pick, and I really like the player. Like I said before, I don't think enough people are talking about him. And the final 5 picks were Kenneth Walker to the Bucks. So there's your running back, your home run threat, as Drew said. Logan Hall, Lewis Sign, Darian Kennard to the Bengals to bolster that offensive line, and then ultimately Christian Harris to round out this 2-round draft. Drew, a lot of fun. A lot of fun. We're
Yeah,
gonna do
man.
this again. 3 rounds. Next time I'll be drafting for the NFC. You'll take on the AFC.
Yeah.
And guys, for Drew, this is Juice signing off.